I thought I was going to die on that mountain road. I really did. You know that moment when time stops? When your brain knows something terrible is happening, but your body hasn't caught up yet? That's where I was foot slammed on the brake pedal, nothing happening, absolutely nothing, and the guardrail rushing toward me at 60 miles per hour. The car spun, metal screamed, glass exploded somewhere behind my head. And then, nothing. When I opened my eyes, I was still alive. Somehow, the airbag had deployed, pressed against my chest like a giant fist. My head throbbed, blood trickled down from somewhere above my eyebrow, but I was breathing. I could hear sirens in the distance, voices, footsteps crunching on gravel, and then I heard him. Anna! Oh my God, Anna! Mitchell. My husband of 12 years came running down the slope, his face twisted in what anyone else would call panic. He yanked open the driver's side door, what was left of it, and pulled me into his arms so hard I gasped. Baby, oh God, are you okay? Are you okay? His voice cracked. His hands trembled as they cupped my face. To anyone watching, he looked like a man who'd just almost lost everything. But I felt it. That split second when his grip tightened just a little too much around my shoulders, the way his eyes darted to the front wheel well, the way he held me close, not like he was relieved but like he was checking. And that's when I saw it. A dark smear on his wrist, slick, oily, brake fluid. Fresh brake fluid. My stomach dropped harder than it had during the crash. Sir, we need to get her on the stretcher. A paramedic's voice cut through the fog in my head. Mitchell pulled back, tears streaming down his face now. Of course. I'm so glad she's alive. He kissed my forehead. And as he leaned in close, his lips near my ear, he whispered something so quiet I almost thought I imagined it. Next time, Anna, don't fight me. I went numb. Not from the crash. Not from the pain. From that, the paramedics lifted me onto the stretcher. I heard someone say something about checking the brake lines, mechanical failure, lucky to be alive. The words blurred together. My vision swam. But I kept my eyes on Mitchell. He stood there by the wreckage, phone already in his hand. He thought I couldn't hear him, thought I was too dazed, too broken. But I heard every word. It didn't work. His voice was low, clipped, frustrated. She's alive. A pause. I don't know what happened. The lines were cut clean. She should have gone straight off the cliff. Another pause. Longer this time. No. We stick to the plan. I'll figure it out. He ended the call. Turned back toward the ambulance with that same devastated husband expression plastered across his face. And that's when I saw her. Across the road, half hidden behind a silver sedan. Lila. Mitchell's younger sister. She stood frozen, one hand pressed over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. Not the kind of horror you feel when you see an accident. No, this was different. This was the look of someone who'd just watched a nightmare unfold in real time. Our eyes met for just a second. And in that second, I knew. She'd heard him too. They loaded me into the ambulance. Mitchell tried to climb in with me, but the paramedic stopped him. You can follow us to the hospital, sir. We need room to work. For a moment, just a moment, I saw the mask slip. Saw the flash of irritation cross his face before he caught himself and nodded. Of course. I'll be right behind you, baby. I love you. I didn't answer. The doors slammed shut. As we pulled away, I stared up at the ceiling of the ambulance, my mind racing faster than my pulse. Mitchell had tried to kill me. My husband, the man I'd built a life with, the man I'd sacrificed everything for, my career, my friends, myself, had cut the brake lines on my car and sent me careening toward a cliff. And he'd failed. But here's the thing that kept echoing in my head, louder than the sirens, louder than the paramedic asking me questions I couldn't answer. Next time. He'd said next time. Which meant he wasn't done. The paramedic shone a light in my eyes. Ma'am, can you tell me your name? Anna, I whispered. Good. Anna, you're going to be okay. You're very lucky. Lucky. I almost laughed. But then I thought about Lila's face, the way she'd looked at Mitchell. The horror, the knowing. And something shifted inside me. I wasn't lucky. I was alive. And that was going to be Mitchell's first mistake. Because he thought I was weak. Thought I was the same woman who'd spent 12 years bending, breaking, disappearing piece by piece to keep him happy. He had no idea what he'd just awakened. And neither did I. Not yet. But I was about to find out. The ambulance turned a corner, and through the small window, I caught one last glimpse of the accident scene. Mitchell stood by our demolished car, phone pressed to his ear again. And Lila was walking toward him. Slowly. Deliberately. I couldn't hear what happened next. But something told me everything was about to change. The smell of hospital disinfectant brought it all back. 35 years. That's how long I'd been a nurse at Mount Sinai. 35 years of double shifts, of holding hands through final breaths, of coming home so bone-tired I could barely stand. But I never complained, not once. Because that's what you do when you love someone. You show up, you do the work. I met Mitchell when I was 28. He was a contractor with rough hands and a kind smile, and he came with a 7-year-old son named Danny, whose mother had left them both without a word. I remember the first time Danny called me Mom. He was 9. We were making pancakes on a Sunday morning, and he just said it so naturally, like it had always been true. Mom, can I have chocolate chips in mine? My heart broke open that day, in the best way. I raised that boy, packed his lunches every single morning, helped with homework at the kitchen table until midnight, sat in the bleachers at every baseball game, even when Mitchell was too busy with work to show up. When Danny graduated high school, he hugged me so tight and whispered, "You're the only real parent I ever had." Mitchell heard him say it. I saw something flicker across his face, but he smiled and clapped Danny on the back, and I told myself I'd imagined it. That was my first mistake, ignoring the signs. But back then, I still believed in us. I believed in the life we were building. When Mitchell's contracting business started failing in 2008, I didn't hesitate. The housing market had crashed, and he was drowning in debt, losing sleep, losing hope. So I took out a second mortgage on the house my parents had left me, the little yellow 2-bedroom in Queens where I'd grown up, where my mother had taught me to make Sunday gravy, where my father had walked me down the hallway on my wedding day because we couldn't afford a real venue. I sold that house. Used every penny to pay off his business loans, to keep him afloat. "I'll pay you back, Anna," he'd promised, holding my hands across our kitchen table. "I swear to God I'll make this right." I believed him. Because that's what you do when you're married. You sacrifice, you trust. When his mother got sick with dementia 3 years later, I brought her into our home, Marguerite. She'd never particularly liked me, always thought Mitchell could have done better, but I bathed her anyway. Fed her, sat with her through the long, confused nights when she didn't know where she was or who I was, changed her sheets when she couldn't make it to the bathroom, held her hand when she cried for her own mother who'd been dead for 40 years. I did it all while working full-time at the hospital, while keeping our house running, while making sure Mitchell had clean clothes and hot meals and a soft place to land when his days got hard. For 6 years, I cared for Marguerite, until she passed away quietly one Tuesday morning, with me holding her hand and whispering the Lord's Prayer she'd taught me when I first married her son. Mitchell cried at her funeral, real tears, and he held me afterward and said, "I don't know what I would have done without you, Anna. You're a saint." I wasn't a saint. I was just a woman who believed that love meant showing up, even when it hurt. Especially when it hurt. If you've ever given everything to someone who later turned away, you'll understand this part. You'll know what it feels like to look back and see all those years of devotion and wonder if any of it mattered. If any of it was seen. Thank you to everyone who helps keep these stories alive. Every word you share, every act of kindness helps protect those who still believe in family, who still believe that good people deserve good endings. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Because there was one thing I didn't know back then, as I stood beside Marguerite's grave, as Mitchell squeezed my hand and promised me we'd finally have time for ourselves now. I didn't know that 3 months later, Marguerite's will would be read. I didn't know she'd left Mitchell a set of undeveloped lakefront lots upstate 20 pristine acres worth close to $2 million. I didn't know that the moment Mitchell saw those property deeds, something in him would change. He wanted to sell immediately, wanted the cash. But the lots were in both our names. Marguerite had insisted, her last little gesture of acknowledging all I'd done for her. Mitchell needed my signature. And when I said I wanted to wait, to think about it, to maybe build something there for our future, instead of just cashing out, that's when I saw it. The flash of rage, the cold calculation behind his eyes. "You owe me, Anna," he'd said quietly. "After everything I've given you, you owe me this." Everything he'd given me. I should have left that night. Should have packed a bag and walked out the door and never looked back. But I told myself he was stressed. That he didn't mean it. That the man I'd loved for 12 years was still in there somewhere. My kindness became his weapon. And 6 weeks later, my brake lines were cut clean through. They released me from the hospital the next afternoon with a concussion, 3 cracked ribs, and a prescription for pain medication I knew I'd never fill. I'd spent 35 years watching people get hooked on those little orange bottles. I wasn't about to become one of them. Mitchell picked me up in his truck. He held the door open, helped me into the passenger seat with exaggerated care, his hand lingering on my arm just a beat too long. "Careful, baby. You've been through hell." I said nothing, just stared straight ahead as he drove us home through familiar streets that suddenly felt like foreign territory. The house looked the same. Our blue colonial on Maple Street, the flower beds I'd planted last spring, the porch swing where we used to drink coffee on Sunday mornings. But everything felt different now, contaminated. Inside, Mitchell had set up the guest room for me on the first floor. "So you don't have to deal with the stairs," he explained, fluffing pillows with a concerned expression that made my skin crawl. "That's thoughtful," I heard myself say. He smiled. Relieved. "I just want you to rest and recover. You scared me, Anna. When I saw that car..." His voice caught convincingly. "I thought I'd lost you." I watched him perform, wondered how long he'd been this good at lying. That night he brought dinner to my room on a tray. Chicken soup, crackers, a glass of water with exactly 3 ice cubes, the way I liked it. "You know," he said casually, sitting on the edge of my bed, "the police said it was mechanical failure. The brake lines just gave out. These things happen with older cars. Our car was 2 years old. But you were probably going too fast on that curve anyway," he continued, his tone still gentle. "Older people panic sometimes. Press the gas instead of the brake. It's completely normal." There it was, the gaslighting, smooth as silk. I was 53 years old. I'd driven that mountain road 100 times. "I didn't press the wrong pedal, Mitchell." "Of course not, honey. I'm just saying what the officer mentioned. You know how they are." He patted my hand. "The important thing is you're safe now." He left me alone with my soup and my racing thoughts. 2 days later, he came back with papers. "Just some insurance stuff we need to update," he said, spreading documents across my bed. "After the accident, I realized we're not protected if something happens to one of us." I picked up the first page. Medical power of attorney. My eyes scanned down, still sharp despite the headache pounding behind them. And there it was, buried in the 3rd paragraph. Transfer rights of property to Mitchell J. Rowe in the event of incapacitation or death. My hands started shaking. "This isn't insurance," I said quietly. Mitchell's smile tightened. "It's protection, Anna. For both of us. This gives you complete control of the lakefront property. Our property. My signature is required to sell it. This bypasses that." He stood up, his shadow falling across me. "I'm trying to take care of our future here. Why are you making this difficult?" "You cut my brake lines." The words hung in the air between us like smoke. For 3 seconds, Mitchell didn't move, didn't blink. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "Jesus Christ, Anna. Listen to yourself. You think I tried to kill you?" He shook his head, his expression shifting to something like pity. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're confused. The concussion. I saw the brake fluid on your wrist. I heard you on the phone. You were in shock. You don't know what you saw. I know what you whispered in my ear." His face changed then. The mask slipped, just for a moment, and I saw the cold fury underneath. "I built this family," he shouted, "and I flinched despite myself. I gave you a home, a son to raise, a life that actually meant something. You were lucky. I married you, Anna. A divorced contractor with a kid? You were 38 years old and alone. 28. I'd been 28. But I didn't correct him. Now I'm asking you to do one simple thing. Sign the papers. Let me handle our finances like a husband should, but you can't even do that, can you, after everything I've done for you?" The bedroom door opened. Danny stood there. My Danny. The boy I'd raised, who was now 32 years old with his father's eyes. "Mom," he said, and my heart broke at the word. "Dad's right. You've been really confused lately. We're worried about you." "We?" "Danny, maybe it's time to let someone help you. Let Dad take care of things for a while, just until you're better." They'd planned this, rehearsed it. Mitchell put his arm around his son's shoulders, a united front. "Think about it," Mitchell said softly. "Take your time. Rest. We'll talk when you're thinking more clearly. They left me alone in that guest room that felt more like a cell. The next morning, I heard Mitchell on the porch, talking to our neighbor, Margaret Chen. She's not doing well, his voice carried through the window. The doctors think she might have had a small stroke before the accident. That's probably what caused it, pressing the gas instead of the brake. We're just grateful she survived. Margaret's sympathetic murmur. She's been saying some strange things. Paranoid thoughts. We're looking into memory care facilities, just to be safe. My hands gripped the windowsill. He was building a narrative, telling everyone I was confused, unstable, mentally incompetent, so that when he finally succeeded in killing me, no one would question it. Or when he had me committed, no one would believe me. If you've ever trusted someone so deeply that their betrayal made you question your own worth, you're not alone. If you've ever had your reality rewritten by someone who claimed to love you, I see you. Thank you to everyone who helps me tell these stories. Your support keeps this space alive for those who still believe that truth, somehow, will always find its way. I sat in that room for 3 hours, not moving. And then I heard a knock at the front door. Light. Hesitant. Mitchell answered it. I heard his voice change, go cold. Lila, what are you doing here? I need to talk to Anna. She's resting. She's not well. Mitchell, I know what you did. Silence. Heavy, dangerous silence. And then, quietly, you don't know anything. I heard you. At the accident. On the phone. My heart started pounding. Get out of my house. Not until I see her. I stood up, ignoring the pain in my ribs, and walked to my door. Opened it. And there she was, Lila, Mitchell's younger sister, standing in our hallway with tears streaming down her face and fire in her eyes. She looked at me. Then at her brother. You're not getting away with this, she whispered. Mitchell's face went white. And everything changed. Mitchell made Lila leave that night. I heard them arguing in the hallway, her voice rising, his staying dangerously calm, and then the front door slamming so hard the pictures rattled on the walls. When he came back to check on me, his face was smooth again, concerned. I'm sorry about that. Lila's been going through some things. She's not herself. I didn't answer, just closed my door and turned the lock. That was the first night I locked my bedroom door. It wouldn't be the last. The days that followed blurred together like watercolors left in rain. I'd wake up in that guest room, my prison, my sanctuary, and lie there listening to Mitchell move through the house above me, his footsteps, the creak of the floorboards, the sound of the coffee maker starting up at 6:15, the same as always, like he hadn't tried to murder his wife. Like everything was normal. I stopped going to the kitchen when he was home, started keeping crackers and bottled water in my nightstand drawer. I'd hear him call my name sometimes. Anna, you hungry, baby? And I'd hold my breath until he gave up and walked away. The house grew so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat in the silence. Even the walls seemed to avoid me. My phone stopped ringing. At first I thought it was broken, but then I checked and saw the messages piling up, all from Mitchell's contacts, people we'd known for years, saying things like, hope you're feeling better, and let us know if you need anything, in that distant, careful way people talk to someone they've been told is fragile, unstable, confused. I tried calling my friend Susan, who I'd worked with at Mount Sinai for almost 20 years. She picked up on the 4th ring. Oh, Anna. Hi. Her voice was strained. Uncomfortable. I was hoping we could get coffee. It's been a while. A pause. Too long. Mitchell mentioned, you're not really up for visitors right now. That you need rest. Susan, I'm fine. I think it's great you're taking time to focus on your health. Really. But maybe wait until you're feeling more like yourself, okay? She hung up before I could respond. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my phone, understanding with perfect clarity what Mitchell had done. He'd poisoned every relationship I had, told everyone I was losing my mind, and they believed him. Of course they believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was Mitchell Rowe, hard-working contractor, devoted husband, pillar of the community. And I was just Anna. The nurse. The quiet one. The woman who'd always faded into the background while her husband shined. I called Danny next. My son. The boy I'd raised. It went straight to voicemail. I called again the next day. And the day after that. He never called back. If you've ever sat in a room so quiet it started to echo your thoughts, you'll understand this silence. The way it wraps around you like water, filling your lungs until you can't remember what air felt like. Thank you to those who help keep these stories alive. Your kindness helps give voice to people who've been forgotten, who sit alone in their pain, waiting to be seen again. I started doing small things to keep myself tethered, washing the same coffee cup over and over, counting the cracks in the ceiling. There were 47, I memorized every one. Sitting in the dark after sunset because turning on the lights felt like too much effort, too much admission that I was still here, still breathing, still taking up space in a house that wanted me gone. At night, I'd lie awake listening. Every creak in the hallway made my heart race. Every footstep near my door. I kept a chair wedged under the doorknob in addition to the lock, kept my phone charged, and next to my pillow, 911 already typed in, thumb hovering over the call button. I slept in 20-minute intervals, startling awake at every sound. Was he coming? Was tonight the night he'd finish what he started? One morning, I saw Margaret Chen in her front yard as I looked out the window. She glanced toward our house, then quickly looked away and hurried inside. I was a ghost, a cautionary tale, the woman who'd lost her mind after a car accident. Mitchell had erased me without killing me. Maybe that was worse. I thought about leaving. Packing a bag and walking out the door and never coming back. But where would I go? I'd sold my parents' house. I had some savings, but Mitchell had access to our joint accounts. And who would believe me if I tried to explain? The police had ruled it mechanical failure. I had no proof. Just the word of a confused woman against her respectable husband. I was trapped. 3 weeks after the accident, I woke up at 2 a.m. to a sound, paper sliding under my door. My whole body went rigid. I stared at the thin line of light beneath the door, watching a small white square appear on the carpet. Footsteps retreated quickly, quietly. I waited 5 full minutes before I moved. Then I crept to the door, chair still wedged beneath the knob, and picked up the note. The handwriting was unfamiliar, feminine, hurried. "You're not crazy. I know what he's doing. I heard him on the phone. He's planning something worse. Meet me tomorrow 2 p.m. at Riverside Park, North Entrance. Come alone, don't tell him. Please, Anna, you're running out of time. Lila." I read it 3 times. Then I locked it in my nightstand drawer, climbed back into bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn broke through the curtains. 47 cracks. I counted them again. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. I felt the faintest spark of hope. Or maybe it was just rage, finally waking up. I didn't tell Mitchell I was leaving the house. Just waited until I heard his truck pull out of the driveway at 1:30. He had a job site in Westchester, wouldn't be back until 6, and then I walked out the front door for the first time in 3 weeks. The sunlight felt like an accusation. Riverside Park was 15 minutes away on foot. I kept my head down, hands shoved in my jacket pockets, moving fast. Every car that passed made my shoulders tense. Every stranger's glance felt like judgment. There she is, the crazy one. Poor Mitchell. Lila was already waiting on a bench near the north entrance, hands wrapped around a coffee cup that had long gone cold. When she saw me, she stood up so fast she nearly dropped it. "Anna." Her voice cracked. "Thank God." We didn't hug. Didn't smile. Just stood there looking at each other, 2 women who'd barely spoken over 12 years of family dinners, suddenly bound by the same terrible knowledge. "Sit," she said. "Please." I sat. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The river moved past us, indifferent. A jogger passed. A woman with a stroller. Normal people, living normal lives. "I need to tell you something," Lila finally said. "And you're going to think I'm insane, but I swear to God, Anna, every word is true." I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hands trembled. "Mitchell is drowning in debt," she said quietly. "Again. Worse than before. He's been gambling online poker, sports betting. He's down almost $200,000. My stomach dropped. "He forged your signature on a preliminary sales contract for the lakefront property 8 months ago. Told the buyers you'd sign the final paperwork after he talked you into it, but without your real signature, the sale falls through. And he's already taken out loans using that land as collateral. $200,000. The number sat between us like a body. If he can't get your signature, Lila continued, her voice barely above a whisper, or if you die, he gets your life insurance payout, $750,000. Policy he took out on you last March. Last March, when he'd asked me to sign a stack of papers for updated coverage, when I'd trusted him. He needs you dead or declared incompetent, Anna. Those are his only options now. The world tilted. And there's something else. Lila's hands were shaking so hard she had to set down her coffee. Something I should have told someone years ago, but I was too scared, and I convinced myself I'd imagined it. But I didn't, Anna. I didn't. Lila, breathe. She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. Mitchell's first wife, she whispered. Caroline. Danny's mother. She left them. He told me she abandoned. She didn't leave. Lila's voice broke. She died, Anna. Fell down the basement stairs when Danny was 6, broke her neck. Mitchell was the only one home. The air left my lungs. The police ruled it an accident. But 2 weeks before she died, Caroline called me. She was terrified. Said Mitchell had been acting strange, controlling, watching her constantly. Said he'd asked about her life insurance policy twice in 1 week. She was going to leave him, take Danny, and disappear. Oh God. She never got the chance. Lila reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a small flash drive. I've been recording him. Phone calls he didn't know I could hear. Bank statements I copied when I visited last month. And this. She held up her phone, hands shaking. A voicemail he left me by accident 3 days ago. He thought he'd hung up, but he hadn't. She pressed play. Mitchell's voice, distant but clear. Doesn't matter what Anna thinks she knows. Lila won't say anything. She's too scared. And even if she does, who's going to believe her? Anna's already showing signs of dementia. Everyone's seen it. The documents are ready. 2 more weeks, and this is over. The recording ended. I sat there, frozen, as the truth crystallized into something sharp and undeniable. My husband was a murderer, and I was supposed to be his second victim. If you've ever found truth in the quiet moments after pain, you know what this part feels like, the way clarity can hurt worse than lies. The way knowing changes everything and nothing all at once. Thank you to everyone who supports these stories. Your kindness keeps hope alive for people still finding their voice after betrayal. Lila pressed the flash drive into my palm. I have copies, she said, hidden, safe, but you need this, you need proof. I closed my fingers around it. What do I do? My voice sounded strange. Calm, cold. Lila looked at me with something like respect. You survive, she said. And then you make sure he doesn't. I walked home from Riverside Park with the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket. The house was still empty when I got back. Mitchell's truck wouldn't return for hours. I had time. There comes a point when silence stops meaning defeat. It becomes preparation. I went to the guest room, my cell, my sanctuary, and sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop. The flash drive slid into the port with a soft click that sounded louder than it should have. Files appeared on my screen, audio recordings labeled by date, bank statements showing transfers I'd never authorized. Scanned documents with my forged signature, crude forgeries, but good enough to fool a title company that wasn't looking too hard. And the voicemail. I played it again, just to be sure I hadn't imagined it. Mitchell's voice. Doesn't matter what Anna thinks, she knows. Lila won't say anything. She's too scared. And even if she does, who's going to believe her? Anna's already showing signs of dementia. Everyone's seen it. The documents are ready. 2 more weeks, and this is over. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to become someone he didn't recognize. The first call I made was to Eleanor Vasquez, the lawyer Lila had recommended. Her office was in Manhattan, far enough from our neighborhood that no one would see me coming or going. Miss Vasquez? My name is Anna Rowe. I need help, and I need it quietly. Her voice was crisp, professional. Tell me everything. I did. All of it. The break lines, the forged signatures, the life insurance policy, Caroline's death 25 years ago that was never investigated properly. When I finished, there was a long pause. Can you come to my office tomorrow at 10? She asked. I'll be there. The second call was to my bank. I opened a new account just in my name and transferred half of our joint savings into it. $33,400. Not enough to live on forever, but enough to disappear if I needed to. Each keystroke felt like a knife cutting through chains. The third thing I did was order a security camera online. Small, discreet, battery-powered. It would arrive in 2 days with expedited shipping. For years, I mistook generosity for love. Now, I'm learning the quiet math of self-respect. Mitchell came home at 6:15, just like always. "Anna? You awake, baby?" I was sitting in the guest room with the lights off, laptop closed, evidence hidden. "In here?" I called back, keeping my voice soft. Fragile. He appeared in the doorway with takeout bags. "Chinese food. My favorite. Once upon a time. Thought we could have dinner together tonight," he said, smiling that smile I used to trust. "You've been holed up in here for weeks. I miss you." I looked at him and saw Caroline, saw the basement stairs, saw brake lines cut clean through. "That's sweet," I heard myself say. "I'm not very hungry, though." His smile tightened. "You need to eat, Anna. Keep your strength up. Maybe later." He stood there for a moment, studying me, looking for cracks in my performance. I gave him fragility. Gave him the broken woman he needed me to be. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. I'll leave it in the kitchen if you change your mind." He closed the door. I waited until I heard him go upstairs before I let out the breath I'd been holding. The next morning, I went to Eleanor Vasquez's office. She was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and a handshake that meant business. "First things first," she said, spreading documents across her desk. "We need to protect your assets. I'm going to help you establish an irrevocable trust for your portion of the lakefront property. Once it's in the trust, Mitchell can't touch it, forge your signature, or use it as collateral. It becomes untouchable. How long will that take? If we move fast, 3 days. Do it." For the next hour, I signed real documents, legal ones. Each signature was an act of reclamation. When I left her office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. The security camera arrived on Thursday. I waited until Mitchell left for work, then went into the garage with a stepladder and a screwdriver. The camera was small enough to hide behind a paint can on the shelf, pointed directly at where my car was parked, with a clear view of the brake lines. I tested the angle on my phone. Perfect. Then I went back inside and pretended to be the woman he thought I was. Weak, confused, compliant. It's funny how silence can sound like thunder when guilt starts to echo. On Friday night, I made a show of taking my sleeping pills in front of Mitchell. "Doctor said these would help with the nightmares," I told him, swallowing them with water. "They were Tylenol." "That's good, baby. You need rest." I went to my room at 9. Turned off the lights. Lay in bed with my phone in my hand, the camera feed pulled up on the screen. At 11:30, I heard the garage door open. My heart started pounding, but I didn't move. Just watched the grainy black and white feed as Mitchell walked into frame, carrying a toolbox. He looked around, listened, made sure I was asleep. Then he knelt beside my car and opened the toolbox. I watched him work for 7 minutes, watched him loosen something beneath the front wheel well, watched him test it twice to make sure, watched him stand up, brush off his hands and put the tools away. Every second was recorded. Every movement was evidence. He went back inside, and I lay there in the dark, shaking not with fear but with rage so cold it felt like clarity. They taught me that love meant giving. Today, I'm teaching myself that love can also mean stopping. The next morning I heard him on the phone in his office. The door was cracked, and his voice carried. "Yeah, it's done. Same setup as before, but cleaner this time." A pause. "Monday morning. She's got that doctor's appointment in White Plains Mountain Roads all the way there." Another pause. And then, quieter. "This time, I'll make it look like she drove off the pier. They'll call it suicide, grief over her declining mental state." I stood in the hallway, recording every word on the audio device Eleanor had given me. When he hung up, I walked calmly back to my room and sent 3 files to Eleanor's encrypted email. The garage camera footage, the phone call recording, a message. "Monday. He's planning Monday." Her response came in 30 seconds. "Don't drive that car. I'm filing emergency motions today. Stay safe. We're almost there." I sat on my bed and looked out the window at the morning light. For the first time in 26 years, I didn't need them to hear me. My silence had already spoken. And on Monday morning, it was going to scream. Monday morning, I didn't drive to White Plains. I drove to the police station instead. Eleanor met me there with 3 lawyers from her firm, 2 bankers who'd verified the forged signatures, and Lila, who looked like she hadn't slept in days. We spent 4 hours going through everything: the recordings, the camera footage, the financial documents, Caroline's death certificate, and the original police report that had been filed away for 25 years. Detective Sarah Brennan listened to it all without interrupting. When we finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me with something like respect. "Mrs. Rowe, I'm going to ask you to do something that's going to be very difficult." "What?" "Go home, act normal. We need 48 hours to build an airtight case and coordinate with the DA's office. Can you do that?" I thought about Mitchell's hands on the brake lines. Thought about Caroline at the bottom of those basement stairs. "I can do that." "Good. Because on Wednesday night your husband is going down." Wednesday was Mitchell's lakeside dinner party. He'd been planning it for weeks, a celebration of new beginnings at the property he thought he was about to sell. He'd invited his business partner, 3 neighbors from our street, and Danny. Everyone he'd manipulated. Everyone who thought I was losing my mind. I told Mitchell I'd come. Told him I was feeling better, that maybe he was right about everything. He looked so relieved he almost cried. "That's my girl," he said, kissing my forehead. "I knew you'd come around." I smiled and felt nothing. Wednesday evening, Lila picked me up at 6. Mitchell had already left to set up at the lake house tables, lights, champagne he'd charged to our joint credit card. "You ready?" Lila asked. I looked at myself in the mirror. Simple black dress. No jewelry. Hair pulled back. "I'm ready." The lake house looked beautiful in the fading light. String lights hung between the trees. A long table set for 8. Mitchell in khakis and a button-down, playing the perfect host. When I walked in with Lila, he froze for just a second. "Lila, I didn't know you were coming." "Anna invited me," she said coolly. "Family should be together, right?" His jaw tightened, but he recovered fast. "Of course, the more the merrier." Danny was already there, drink in hand, looking uncomfortable. The neighbors, Margaret Chen, Tom, and Linda Vasquez, Mitchell's business partner Rick, stood around making small talk. Everyone turned to look at me when I entered. I could see it in their eyes. The pity. The concern. The silent question. "Is she okay?" Mitchell raised his glass. "Everyone please sit, I want to make a toast." We sat. I took the chair at the opposite end of the table from Mitchell. Lila sat beside me. Mitchell stood, champagne glass catching the light. "I want to thank you all for coming tonight. These past few months have been incredibly difficult for our family. Anna's accident, her recovery, it's been a journey." Several people nodded sympathetically. "But I'm grateful to say we're turning a corner. Anna's getting the help she needs, and soon we'll be starting a new chapter, to new beginnings." He raised his glass. That's when I stood up. The table went quiet. "Actually, Mitchell, before we toast, I have something I'd like everyone to hear." His smile faltered. "Anna, maybe we should play the recording, Lila." Lila pulled out a small Bluetooth speaker and pressed play. Mitchell's voice filled the air, crystal clear. "If she doesn't sign the papers, she dies. I don't care how it looks, make it an accident, make it suicide, I don't give a fuck. But she's not walking away from this with my money." The color drained from Mitchell's face. Margaret Chen's hand flew to her mouth. What is this?" Mitchell stammered. "This is someone edited." "There's more," I said quietly. The garage footage played next on Lila's tablet, passed around the table. Mitchell kneeling beside my car, Mitchell's hands on the brake lines, Mitchell checking, testing, making sure. Danny made a sound like he'd been punched. "Dad? This is insane." Mitchell's voice cracked. She's setting me up. Can't you see? She's mentally ill." "I have documents that prove." "The forged documents?" Eleanor Vasquez stepped out from the shadows near the house. Not related to Tom and Linda, but wearing the same last name, like armor. "The ones where you faked Anna's signature 17 times in 8 months? Rick, Mitchell's business partner, stood up slowly. "Mitchell, what the hell is going on?" "I can explain. Can you explain Caroline?" Lila's voice cut through the chaos like glass. Everyone froze. "Your first wife," Lila continued, her voice shaking but steady, "who fell down the basement stairs 25 years ago. Who called me 2 weeks before she died and said she was afraid of you. Who had a life insurance policy for $500,000. Mitchell's face went white, then red. You're lying. You're both. The police don't think so. Detective Brennan stepped into the light, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. Mitchell Rowe, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy to commit murder. We're also reopening the investigation into Carolyn Rowe's death in 2000. The world seemed to stop. Mitchell looked around the table at his son, at his friends, at me. Danny, he whispered, tell them your mother's crazy. But Danny was staring at him like he'd never seen him before. Dad, did you kill my mom? Mitchell's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. The handcuffs snapped shut with a sound like bones breaking. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away, Mitchell looked at me one last time. I met his eyes and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just the cold, clear relief of breathing after drowning. The table sat in stunned silence. Then Margaret Chen stood up, walked over to me, and took my hand. I'm so sorry, Anna. I should have believed you. I squeezed her hand. You didn't know. But I did. And I'd survived anyway. Lila and I left together, walking past the string lights and the champagne and the wreckage of Mitchell's last performance. Behind us, I could hear Danny crying. I almost turned back. Almost. But some things can't be fixed with comfort. Some people have to find their own way through the wreckage. I'd already found mine. The trial took 6 months. 6 months of depositions, expert witnesses, forensic accountants tracing every forged signature and fraudulent loan. 6 months of Caroline's case being reopened, her body exhumed, new evidence examined under lights that should have been turned on 25 years ago. I attended every hearing. Not because I needed to see Mitchell suffer, but because Caroline deserved a witness. Someone who understood what it meant to love a man who saw you as collateral. The courtroom was always cold. Fluorescent lights, hard wooden benches, the kind of space designed to strip away performance and leave only truth. Mitchell's lawyer tried everything, claimed I was a scorned wife seeking revenge, suggested Lila had fabricated evidence out of family grudges, even attempted to argue that the garage footage had been doctored. But you can't argue with physics, with brake fluid residue under his fingernails, with bank records showing he'd taken out a $750,000 life insurance policy on me 8 months before my brakes failed. With his own voice on recording, cold and matter-of-fact, if she doesn't sign the papers, she dies. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery. And after the forensic team found evidence of blunt force trauma on Caroline's skull trauma, inconsistent with a simple fall accessory to murder in her death. When the verdict was read, Mitchell didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat there, gray-faced, staring at nothing. But when they led him away in handcuffs, he looked at me one last time. You ruined everything, Anna, he said, not shouting, just stating it like a fact. I leaned forward slightly, so only he could hear. No, Mitchell, you did. After the verdict, silence became my favorite sound. It was the sound of justice finally breathing. The fallout was immediate and thorough. Mitchell's contracting business collapsed within 2 weeks. Clients canceled projects. His business partner, Rick, dissolved the partnership and filed a lawsuit for financial damages. The lakefront property still in my protected trust remained untouchable, but everything else Mitchell owned was seized to pay restitution, legal fees, and civil judgments. Danny stopped calling me entirely. I heard through Margaret Chen that he'd moved to Boston, changed his last name back to his mother's maiden name Sullivan, and started therapy. I sent him one letter, telling him I loved him and that none of this was his fault. He never wrote back. Some wounds take longer than 6 months to heal. Some take lifetimes. I understood. People in the neighborhood started treating me differently. Not with pity anymore, but with a strange kind of reverence. Margaret brought me casseroles I didn't ask for. Tom Vasquez offered to fix my porch railing for free. Even the mailman started saying good morning like he meant it. I accepted their kindness without explaining that I didn't need saving anymore. I'd already saved myself. Mitchell's sentencing was scheduled for August. 25 years to life, the prosecutor said. Between Caroline's murder and my attempted murder, he'd likely die in prison. I didn't go to the sentencing. Didn't need to. Lila went, though. Called me afterward from the courthouse steps. He looked small, she said quietly, like he'd shrunk. He tried to make a statement, said you and I had conspired against him, that he was the real victim. The judge cut him off. What did the judge say? That men who see women as obstacles instead of human beings deserve exactly what they get. Then she gave him the maximum sentence. I sat on my porch swing, the one Mitchell and I used to share on Sunday mornings, and watched the sun set over Maple Street. Thank you, Lila, for everything. You did this, Anna. Not me. We did it together. After we hung up, I sat there in the fading light and thought about Caroline, about the woman she might have become if she'd survived, about Danny at 7 years old, losing his mother, about the years I'd spent raising him, loving him, trying to fill a hole that Mitchell had created. Some debts don't need to be collected. Life has its own way of balancing the books. I sold the lakefront property 6 months later, not for $2 million, for $3.2. Turned out the land was worth more than Mitchell had ever known, because he'd never bothered to get it properly appraised. He just wanted quick cash. I donated $1 million to a women's shelter in Manhattan that specialized in helping victims of domestic violence escape dangerous situations. I gave another $500,000 to Caroline's family, her sister and her aging parents who'd never stopped believing she'd been murdered. The rest I kept. Bought myself a small apartment in Brooklyn with large windows and room for a garden. Went back to nursing part-time at a pediatric clinic, where I could hold babies and watch them grow and remember why I'd chosen this work in the first place. Started painting again, something I hadn't done since I was 25. Lila visited every other Sunday. We'd drink coffee and talk about everything except Mitchell. She was dating someone new, a woman named Rebecca who made her laugh. Sometimes I'd catch Lila looking at me with something like wonder. What? I'd ask. You're different. Lighter. I stopped carrying other people's weight. 1 year after the trial, I received a letter. From Danny. It was short. 3 sentences. I'm sorry it took me so long to see the truth. Thank you for loving me when no one else did. I hope someday I can be half as strong as you. I cried reading it, not sad tears, grateful ones. I wrote him back, told him he was already strong, told him his mother would be proud. And I meant it. 2 years after Mitchell was sentenced, I heard he'd tried to appeal. The appeal was denied within 3 weeks. I didn't feel satisfaction when I heard the news. Didn't feel anything except a quiet recognition that justice, once served, doesn't need to be relitigated in your heart. I planted tomatoes in my Brooklyn garden that spring, watched them grow from seeds into something living and red and real, and on quiet evenings, when the city sounds faded and the light turned gold, I'd sit on my fire escape and think about all the versions of myself I'd been. The nurse who believed in kindness, the wife who mistook silence for peace, the woman who survived a man who wanted her dead, the person who learned that the most beautiful victory is simply being alive and free and unafraid. I didn't need to ruin them. Their lies had already done that. And I was finally, completely, home. 3 years after Mitchell was sentenced, I stood in the kitchen of my Brooklyn apartment making coffee on a Sunday morning, and I realized something strange. I was humming, not performing happiness, not forcing joy. Just humming. Some old song I couldn't even name. Something my mother used to play on the radio when I was small. After the noise fades, what's left isn't victory, it's understanding. Lila came over that afternoon with pastries from the bakery on Court Street. We'd fallen into this ritual every other Sunday, coffee and conversation, the kind of easy companionship I'd never had with Mitchell in 12 years of marriage. You look good, she said, settling into the chair by the window. Really good. I feel like myself again. Whoever that is. That's the best part, isn't it? Getting to find out. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people walk past on the street below. Dog walkers, couples holding hands, a kid on a skateboard. Normal life, beautiful in its ordinariness. I've been thinking about something, Lila said finally. About Mitchell. About what he did to both of us. You, me, Caroline, Danny. All the people he damaged. What about it? I used to lie awake at night wishing terrible things would happen to him in prison, wanted him to suffer the way we did. She looked at me. But I don't anymore. Is that wrong? I thought about it, about the rage I'd carried for so long, hot and heavy in my chest. About the day I realized it wasn't there anymore, and how much lighter I felt without it. Justice isn't about watching them fall, I said quietly. It's about standing again without hate. She nodded slowly. That's exactly it. The doorbell rang an hour later. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Danny stood there. He'd grown a beard, lost weight, had circles under his eyes that spoke of nights spent wrestling with ghosts. "Hi," he said. Just that. One word carrying the weight of 3 years. "Hi, Danny. Can we talk?" I stepped aside and let him in. Lila quietly excused herself, squeezing my hand as she passed. Danny and I sat across from each other at my small kitchen table, the same configuration as 1,000 breakfasts when he was growing up, but everything was different now. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "I'm so sorry, Anna. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. You raised me, and when you needed me most, you were his son. You wanted to believe in him. He killed my mother." Danny's voice cracked. "And I let him make you think you were crazy. I helped him gaslight you. Danny," I reached across the table and took his hand. "You were a child when Caroline died. You couldn't have known. And when this happened, he'd been manipulating you your whole life. That's what he did. That's what he was good at. But you deserved better from me." "Yes," I said honestly. "I did. But I also understand why it took time. You lost your father and had to accept he was a monster. That's not a small thing," he cried then. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deep and long buried. When he could speak again, he said, "You were the only real parent I ever had. And I'm so grateful you existed. Even if I didn't know how to show it." I cried too. For him. For the boy he'd been. For Caroline, who never got to see him grow up. "I forgive you," I said. "But more importantly, I hope you forgive yourself." He left an hour later with a long hug and a promise to stay in touch. This time, I believed him. That evening, I stood on my fire escape watching the sunset paint Brooklyn in shades of gold and pink. The city hummed below me, sirens, laughter, music from someone's open window. I thought about the woman I'd been 4 years ago, the one who believed love meant erasing herself, who thought kindness required endless sacrifice, who gave and gave until there was nothing left but a shell wearing her face. I used to believe love meant giving everything. Now I know love also means knowing when to stop. Mitchell had tried to take my life because I wouldn't give him what he wanted. But what he didn't understand, what men like him never understand, is that you can't destroy someone who's already learned to rebuild themselves. His sister gave me the tools, the evidence, the courage to fight back. But I was the one who chose to use them. I was the one who stood up in that courtroom and told the truth. I was the one who refused to disappear. If my story teaches anything, it's this. Kindness without boundaries isn't love, it's surrender. And sometimes the most radical act of self-respect is simply saying, no more. The money from the land sale gave me financial freedom. The trial gave me legal justice. Danny's apology gave me closure. But peace? Peace came from something quieter. It came from mornings when I woke up without fear. From evenings spent painting in my small studio, hands covered in color instead of chains. From friendships built on honesty instead of performance. From the simple, revolutionary act of choosing myself. Mitchell cut my brakes to take my life, but his sister helped me take back my dignity, and that was worth more than anything he tried to steal. I don't know what happened to Mitchell after sentencing. Don't know if he thinks about Caroline or me in his cell. Don't know if he's found remorse or just more excuses. And I've realized something profound. I don't need to know. His story is over. Mine is still being written. Justice gave me back my name. But peace gave me back myself. And on this Sunday evening in Brooklyn, with the city glowing gold around me and coffee still warm in my cup, that feels like more than enough. If you've ever lost yourself trying to love someone who only saw your worth in numbers, I hope my story reminds you, it's never too late to choose yourself. Thank you for keeping these stories alive, stories where justice doesn't shout, it heals. The sun dipped below the horizon. I turned back inside, closing the window behind me. Tomorrow, I'd wake up free. And the day after that, and every day after that, for the rest of my life. Not because evil was punished, but because I'd finally learned the most important lesson of all. You can't cut the brakes on a woman who's already learned to fly.